You've heard the opinions of all the experts. You've read everything there is to read. But now there's this. If you're looking for a perspective on 2023's hottest release, the Tudor Black Bay 54, that you've not heard, this is it. Buckle up. You've been warned. Our story starts in 2003 in a little Swiss town called Biel, on Boulevard des Sports, in the Biel Cinedome and bowling alley. Complete with 5 screens packing Dolby Atmos surround, one Philippe Peverelli sat down to enjoy 2 hours and 23 minutes of Johnny Depp staggering around the swashbuckling action-adventure that is Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. Little did he know that, 6 years later, he would be starting the first day of the rest of his life at the helm of ailing Swiss watchmaker Tudor. Tudor was originally created as a bet between Rolex founder and colossal Anglophile Hans Wilsdorf and friend Hermann Eigler, who believed there was no way Wilsdorf could sell watches named after a syphilitic, murderous tyrant. Wilsdorf cheated by packaging up the watches he already made under the Rolex brand with cheaper movements, flogging them to navies around the world that either didn't get the joke or were too mired in bureaucracy to figure it out. Stupidly, Eigler had bet the sole exclusive use of his movement-making factory to Wilsdorf, and having lost, was held to his end of the deal. But as decades passed, and so too did those men, the Tudor joke stopped being funny. To everyone else, it was just another watchmaker selling watches that no one really wanted, what with everyone wearing Casios instead. Tudor was a relic of a bygone era, and gradually it shut its doors around the world. That is, until Peverelli wandered in that day in 2009. As a history and fantasy cosplay buff, he had been mistakenly led to believe he was joining a startup travelling Renaissance show, but it was just a miscommunication, lost in translation. He thought they said, "People will watch the Tudors again," when they actually said, "People will want a Tudor watch again." Easy mistake to make. Nevertheless, Peverelli realised his mistake as he entered a watchmaking factory and not a representation of 1500s England. But it was too late. The contract was signed. So Peverelli dug deep and made the best of a bad situation by applying his love of fantastical history to the frankly horrible selection of watches Tudor was already making. He buried himself in the tomes of Tudor's history, uncovered the bet Wilsdorf had made, and the way in 1954 he'd made it pay off by selling a cheaper version of the Rolex Submariner with the name Tudor on the dial. That Tudor Submariner would be his inspiration. It was perfect. But when he pitched the idea to the Rolex board in their secret chambers deep below a volcano in the middle of the Pacific, the stony hall echoed with gasps.
"Absolutely not,"
he was told.
"Despite that literally being what happened under the watch of the original founder of this brand, we will not acknowledge it. You may make your watch, but you will find another name."
They sent Peverelli away, once again riled at the board's actions. If they wouldn't let him use the watch's rightful name, then he would have to choose something else. Oh, he would choose something else all right. That evening he went to clear his mind by taking in a film, the 4th installment in the Pirates series, On Stranger Tides. A bulb glowed from within him, casting 2 bright lights from his eyes onto the screen that caused other cinema-goers to tut and huff at him. But he didn't hear their protests. He had an idea. He would call the watch Black Pearl, after Captain Jack Sparrow's boat. It was perfect. Nautical, yet classy, the exact same reasoning Sparrow used in a deleted scene from the original film. The dial was black and the loom pip on the bezel at 12 was the pearl. But was it too obvious? He recoiled at the thought of being chastised by the board once more, and so, in a last-minute show of cold feet, he made a small amendment. Black Pearl would become Black Bay, inspired by the fictional location of Whitecap Bay in the film. The name was approved, and in 2012 released to the world. The rest of the story, you know. It was a massive success and spawned a new era for Wilsdorf's prank brand. The success was so fantastic that Peverelli left Tudor in 2016 to join Rolex itself, to don his robes and take his place in that stony chamber below the volcano in the middle of the Pacific. It was up to Eric Pearson to continue that legacy, and in 2018 he did just that with the Black Bay 58. Inspiration came to Pearson one evening when he was thinking about how he could give the Black Bay a turbo boost as he turned an original Black Bay over in his hands. He got up to get a Coke from the fridge, placing the Tudor down on the counter as he went. He forgot to pick it up again on his way back. In his haste to sit down and enjoy the cool, refreshing taste of Coca-Cola, he realized his error. The watch was still on the counter. He could see it, but it was well out of reach. The problem was, he was already comfy, and so he resigned himself to staring at the watch up until he wanted another drink or needed the toilet or something. But this misfortune actually turned out to be a stroke of luck. The watch was further away and, as a result, smaller and harder to read, especially the date. And then it hit him. He would make the watch smaller and harder to read, especially the date, which he would just delete. The success of the 58 was an enormous triumph for Pearson, but he always knew in the back of his mind that he would one day need to repeat it. But the idea would not come. His house was bigger, his cars faster, his bathrooms greater in number, but this good fortune would not bring him a new idea. That is, until one evening when he got up to get a Mega Coke, that's a drink exclusively sold only to the elite, and he set the Black Bay 58 on his unicorn hide hover counter. When he sat down again without it, he was immediately transported back to his roots. He remembered the feeling he had once considered as comfort. He remembered the Black Bay. He remembered his idea. That was it. In a genius move that comes but once a generation, he made the Tudor Black Bay 58 2mm smaller. Let's take a moment to appreciate the impact of this decision. It sits up there with the discovery of penicillin and the signing of the Geneva Convention. And so, come Watches and Wonders 2023, the transformation was complete. The watch, sporting a 37mm case in steel, went right back to that original Tudor Submariner, matching every detail as closely as possible. The bezel was simpler, the crown smaller, the second-hand loom plot rounder. But the cherry on the cake was for Pearson to put a rubber strap on. No one is quite clear where the inspiration for that came. You could say that Tudor's evolution has been slow and painstaking, but that would be wrong, because all this time the answer wasn't in evolution at all. No, not revolution either. The answer was just doing exactly the same thing they'd done the first time all the way back in 1954. And that just goes to show that, ultimately, the best thing is to never do anything, ever. It's too much effort anyway. I hope you enjoyed this idiot's review of the Tudor Black Bay 54. I know I did. If you want to see more, let me know in the comments what you'd like this idiot to review next, and please like and subscribe as well. Thanks very much. Let's see what the pages of history bring next.